The Woman in the Rain, When Your Dead Wife Comes Back to Life. 3 years ago, Hannah Vale disappeared without a trace, leaving her husband Caleb to raise their son alone. Everyone assumed she was dead. But tonight, on a rain-soaked street corner, Caleb's world shatters again. Because there she is, begging for change like a ghost made flesh. What happened to her? Why did she leave? And why does she look so terrified? This is a story of betrayal, survival, and a love that refused to die. Stay until the end, hit that like button, and comment your city below so I can see how far this story travels. The rain came down like punishment that October night, sheets of water turning Seattle's streets into rivers of reflected neon. Caleb Mercer sat at the red light, his Mercedes idling with the kind of engineered quiet that cost more than most people's yearly rent. The wipers scraped across the windshield in hypnotic rhythm, back and forth, back and forth, clearing his view just long enough to see her. At first, she was just another silhouette, another nameless person huddled against the storefront, cardboard sign wilting in the downpour, paper cup extended toward indifferent traffic. Seattle had thousands of them. Caleb had trained himself to look past them, the way you learn to ignore background noise. Not out of cruelty. He donated plenty to shelters, sat on charity boards, did his civic duty in the abstract, sanitized way that let him sleep at night. But this woman made him look twice. Something about the way she held herself, the angle of her shoulders, the desperate hunch that spoke of someone who'd recently learned what rock bottom actually felt like. The light stayed red. Rain drummed on the roof, and Caleb's eyes stayed locked on her. She was thin, too thin, the kind of thin that came from missing meals, not gym memberships. Her hair hung in dark, wet ropes around a face he couldn't quite see. She wore what might have once been a jacket, now just fabric clinging to shaking limbs. Every few seconds, she'd flinch, head swiveling like prey checking for predators. The light turned green. Caleb didn't move. Behind him, a horn blared. He ignored it, something ice-cold crawling up his spine. The woman shifted, lifting her face toward the passing headlights, and no, that wasn't possible. Caleb's hands locked on the steering wheel, knuckles white. His heart stopped, then kicked into overdrive, each beat a hammer against his ribs. Hannah Vale, his ex-wife, the woman who'd walked out of their home 3 years ago and vanished into thin air. The woman he'd spent 6 months searching for, hiring investigators, filing missing persons reports, checking morgues. The woman he'd finally, agonizingly, learned to grieve. She was standing on a street corner, begging. Another horn, longer this time, angry. The Mercedes behind him swerved around, driver shouting something Caleb didn't hear. His entire world had narrowed to the woman on the sidewalk, to the impossible reality of her existence. She looked up at the commotion, and their eyes met through the rain-streaked glass. Recognition hit her like a physical blow. She stumbled backward, cup clattering to the wet concrete, coins scattering. Her mouth opened in what might have been a scream or a gasp, and then she ran. "Hannah!" Caleb's voice cracked as he threw the car into park, door already opening. "Hannah!" She bolted down the sidewalk, bare feet slapping against wet pavement. How had he not noticed she wasn't wearing shoes? How long had she been out here? Caleb ran after her, designer shoes sliding on slick concrete, rain instantly soaking through his $1,000 suit. She was fast, or maybe terror made her fast, darting between pedestrians who shouted in protest as she shoved past. "Hannah, wait! Please!" She cut into an alley, and Caleb followed without thinking, some distant part of his brain noting the stupidity of chasing someone into a dark Seattle alley at night. But this was Hannah. His Hannah. 3 years of grief and rage and guilt, all combusted into pure, desperate need. The alley dead-ended at a chain-link fence. Hannah hit it at full speed, fingers grabbing metal, trying to climb. But she was weak, too weak, and her hands couldn't find purchase on the wet links. "Hannah." Caleb stopped 10 feet away, hands raised, breathing hard. "Hannah, please. I'm not going to hurt you." She spun around, pressing her back against the fence, and Caleb's stomach turned to lead. Up close, she looked like someone had tried to erase her. The Hannah he remembered had been vibrant, full of life and laughter, with color in her cheeks and light in her eyes. This Hannah was a sketch of that woman, all the details rubbed away. Hollow cheeks, bruised shadows under eyes that darted everywhere except directly at him, lips cracked and bleeding, a scar running along her jawline that definitely hadn't been there 3 years ago. Don't. Her voice was raw, barely above a whisper. Don't come closer. What happened to you? The words came out broken. Where have you been? We looked for you. I looked everywhere. You shouldn't have. She was shaking so hard her teeth chattered. You should have forgotten, should have moved on. Forgotten? Caleb's voice rose despite himself. You're my wife. You're Luke's mother. You disappeared without a word, without a trace, and you think I could just... He stopped, forcing himself to breathe. Getting angry wouldn't help. Come home, please, just come home. Hannah laughed, and it was the worst sound Caleb had ever heard. Hollow, broken. Home? I don't have a home, I can't... Her eyes fixed on something over his shoulder and went wide with pure terror. Did anyone follow you? What? No, Are you sure? She grabbed his arm, fingers digging in with surprising strength. Are you absolutely sure? Did you see anyone watching? Any cars that seemed wrong? Hannah, there's no one. You don't understand. She was crying now, tears mixing with rain. You can't be seen with me. You can't. It's not safe. They'll know. They always know. And then... She covered her mouth, choking on a sob. Caleb's mind raced. Paranoia? Mental break? Or was someone actually after her? Who's they? Who are you afraid of? But Hannah just shook her head, sliding down the fence until she was sitting in a puddle, arms wrapped around her knees. You should go. Forget you saw me. Please, Caleb. If you ever love me, just go. Caleb knelt in the dirty water beside her. I'm not leaving you here. You have to. No. He shrugged off his jacket, draping it over her shaking shoulders. I left you once. I let you slip away, and I've regretted it every single day since. I'm not making that mistake again. This isn't a mistake you get to fix. She looked at him finally, really looked at him, and the anguish in her eyes nearly broke him. I left to protect you, to protect Luke. Coming back into your life will only... Protect us from what? Hannah opened her mouth, closed it, then shook her head. I can't tell you. It'll make it real again. Caleb made a decision. Maybe it was stupid. Maybe it was dangerous. But he'd spent 3 years in a fog of grief and confusion, and now the woman he'd mourned was sitting in an alley, terrified and broken, and he'd be damned if he let her disappear again. Okay, he said softly. You don't have to tell me. Not yet. But you're coming with me. Just for tonight. Get dry, get warm, get some food in you. Then, if you want to leave, I won't stop you. You don't understand what you're... I don't. You're right, but I'm asking anyway. He stood, extending his hand. Please, Hannah, let me help. She stared at his hand for a long moment. Behind them, traffic hummed. Rain pattered endlessly. Somewhere, a siren wailed. The whole city carried on, indifferent to the fact that Caleb Mercer's entire existence had just been torn open and rearranged. Finally, with shaking fingers, Hannah took his hand. Bolts. The drive to Caleb's estate in Medina took 20 minutes that felt like hours. Hannah sat in the passenger seat, jacket pulled tight around her, saying nothing. She jumped at every car that came too close, every set of headlights that lingered too long behind them. Her eyes never stopped moving, scanning mirrors, checking windows, cataloging threats Caleb couldn't see. He wanted to ask 1,000 questions, wanted to demand explanations, but the fragile thread connecting them felt too delicate to test, so he drove in silence, one hand on the wheel, the other aching to reach for hers, but not quite daring. The gate to his property rolled open with a quiet hum. Hannah tensed. It's just the gate, Caleb said gently. We're here. She looked at the house, all glass and modern lines, artfully lit against the night, and something complicated crossed her face. You moved. 2 years ago, the old house. He swallowed. Too many memories. She nodded, understanding in a way that made his chest tight. He parked in the garage, noting absently that his assistant Serena's car was gone. Good. He'd sent her home hours ago, told her to enjoy her weekend. The last thing he needed right now was questions he couldn't answer. Inside, Caleb led Hannah through the house, hyper-aware of her reactions. She moved like a wild thing in captivity, ready to bolt at any second. When they reached the guest suite, he flipped on the lights. There's a bathroom through there. Shower, toiletries, whatever you need. I'll bring you some clothes. He paused. When's the last time you ate? Hannah's silence was answer enough. Right. Give me 20 minutes. In his own room, Caleb stood for a moment, letting it all crash over him. Hannah. Alive. Here. In his house. After 3 years of nothing, of aching absence, she was in his guest room, probably stepping into his shower, probably... His phone buzzed. Luke's babysitter. All good here. Luke's been asleep since 8. See you tomorrow afternoon? Tomorrow. Right. Luke was at his mother's for the weekend, the monthly visit Caleb had negotiated to give himself occasional breathing room. Thank God. He had no idea how to explain any of this to a 5-year-old. He texted back confirmation, then pulled out clothes, a soft t-shirt, sweatpants, warm socks. Things that would swallow Hannah's too thin frame, but at least keep her warm. Then he headed to the kitchen. Caleb wasn't much of a cook, that's what the meal service was for, but he could manage soup. He found chicken noodle in the pantry, set it heating, made tea with trembling hands. Normal actions. Domestic rituals. As if the world hadn't just tilted off its axis. When he returned to the guest suite, Hannah was out of the shower, wearing his clothes, sitting on the edge of the bed. Her wet hair hung around her face. Without the grime and rain, he could see more damage, bruises in various stages of healing along her arms, the scar on her jaw, another along her collarbone. And her eyes, those eyes that had once sparkled with mischief and warmth, now just looked haunted. I made soup, Caleb said, setting the tray on the bedside table. And tea. You should eat slowly. If you haven't been eating regularly. I know. She looked at the food like it might bite her. Thank you. Caleb sat in the chair across from the bed, maintaining distance. I called my doctor, Avery Lang. She's a friend, someone I trust. She'll be here in an hour to check you over. Caleb, you can't. I can. And I did. His voice was gentle but firm. You're clearly hurt, Hannah. You need medical attention. I'm fine. You're not. He leaned forward, elbows on knees. And that's okay. You don't have to be fine, but you do have to let someone help. Hannah's hands twisted in her lap. Why are you being so nice to me? I left. I abandoned you and Luke without a word. You should hate me. I did. The honesty hung between them. For a long time, I hated you. Hated what you did, the questions you left behind, the hole you tore in our lives. He met her eyes. But mostly, I hated that I couldn't stop loving you anyway. A tear slid down Hannah's cheek. She wiped it away roughly. Eat, Caleb said softly. We can talk after. She picked up the spoon with shaking hands and took a tentative sip, then another. Within minutes, she was eating like someone who'd forgotten what food tasted like, and Caleb had to gently remind her to slow down. He watched, cataloging every reaction, every flinch, every moment of fear that crossed her face. Dr. Avery Lang arrived exactly 60 minutes later, a sleek woman in her 50s with kind eyes and the sort of unflappable demeanor that came from decades of emergency medicine. Caleb had called in a favor, asked her to come personally and discreetly. She'd asked only one question. Is someone in danger? I don't know, Caleb had answered honestly. Now Avery examined Hannah with efficient gentleness while Caleb waited in the hallway, pacing like an expectant father. 20 minutes later, she emerged, closing the door softly behind her. She's malnourished, dehydrated, and suffering from what looks like chronic stress and trauma, Avery said without preamble. Multiple old injuries that healed poorly, possible PTSD. She needs regular meals, rest, and probably therapy. Will she be okay? Avery's expression softened. Physically, with time and care, yes. Emotionally? She shook her head. That woman has been living in survival mode for a long time, Caleb. Whatever she's been through, it's going to take more than soup and a warm bed to heal. What do I do? Be patient, don't push, let her set the pace. Avery squeezed his shoulder. And maybe get some answers about what she's running from, because she's definitely running from something. After Avery left, Caleb returned to the guest room. Hannah was back on the bed, curled into a ball, his clothes hanging off her frame. She says you need rest, Caleb said. I need to leave. But Hannah didn't move. Where would you go? I don't know. Somewhere you're not. Somewhere Luke isn't. Her voice cracked on their son's name. Caleb's heart clenched. He asks about you all the time. Where's Mama? When is Mama coming home? He swallowed hard. I didn't know what to tell him, so I said you'd gotten sick and had to go away to get better. Was that true, Hannah? Did you get sick? In a way. She looked at him finally, and the pain in her eyes was bottomless. How is he? Really? Caleb thought of his son, bright, energetic, so much like Hannah it hurt sometimes. He's good, smart, funny. He loves dinosaurs and won't eat anything green. He's starting kindergarten next fall. Kindergarten. Hannah's face crumpled. I missed so much. Then don't miss any more. I can't stay, Caleb. You keep saying that. He sat on the edge of the bed, not touching, but close. But you haven't told me why. You said you left to protect us. Protect us from what? Hannah's jaw worked. For a long moment, Caleb thought she wouldn't answer. Then, so quietly, he almost missed it. From the people who tried to kill me. The words hung in the air like smoke. What? 3 years ago. Hannah's voice was mechanical now, reciting facts to avoid feeling them. Someone started following me, watching the house, leaving notes. At first I thought I was paranoid. Postpartum anxiety, maybe. But then the threats got specific. Details about Luke's schedule, your meetings, things only someone watching closely would know. Caleb's blood ran cold. Why didn't you tell me? I tried. You were so busy with the company, the expansion, the investors. Every time I brought it up, you had a rational explanation. I was stressed, imagining things. Needed sleep. She laughed bitterly. Maybe I believed you. Maybe I wanted to believe you. Hannah. Then one night, I was driving home late from my sister's. A car followed me from the freeway. I thought I was being paranoid again, but then it sped up, rammed me from behind. Her hands were shaking again, clutching the blanket. I lost control. Went off the road. The car didn't stop. It came back, reversed, and tried to hit me again while I was still in the driver's seat. Horror washed through Caleb. Jesus Christ. I got out, ran into the trees. The driver chased me on foot. Hannah's eyes were far away now, seeing something Caleb couldn't. I fell down an embankment, hit my head. When I woke up, there were police lights above. I heard voices saying they found the car, but no body. I stayed hidden until they left. Why? Caleb's voice was hoarse. Why didn't you call for help? Because I was terrified. She looked at him, and her eyes were fierce despite the tears. Don't you understand? Someone knew where I'd be, knew my route, knew I'd be alone. That kind of information came from inside our life, Caleb, from someone close. And if I came back, if I showed up alive, whoever wanted me dead would just try again. But next time, they might not stop with me. They might go after you, or Luke. The logic was twisted but not insane. The logic of someone pushed to the edge and forced to make impossible choices. So you just vanished. I survived. Her voice hardened. I lived in shelters, under bridges, took cash jobs when I could find them, stayed invisible. And I watched from a distance to make sure you and Luke were okay. We weren't okay, Caleb's voice broke. We were destroyed. But you were alive. Hannah met his eyes. That's all that mattered. Caleb stood, needing to move, to process. He walked to the window, staring out at the manicured grounds, the perfect life he'd built on the ashes of his marriage. You should have trusted me, he said finally. Maybe, but I couldn't risk being wrong. He turned back to her. And now? You're here now. What changed? Hannah was quiet for a long moment. I got careless, started spending more time in the same areas, and I think someone recognized me. I've been seeing the same car lately, the same faces. It's starting again. Then we go to the police. And tell them what? Hannah's laugh was sharp. That 3 years ago someone tried to kill me, but I can't prove it? That I've been living on the streets instead of reporting it? They'll think I'm crazy. Then we hire security, investigators, Caleb. She stood, swaying slightly. You're not listening. Being near me puts you in danger, puts Luke in danger. I never should have let you bring me here. Too bad. Caleb crossed back to her. You're here, and I'm not letting you go back out there alone. You can't watch me. He gentled his voice. Hannah, for 3 years I've lived with questions, with guilt, with the weight of not knowing. Now you're here, and I finally have a chance to get answers, to actually help instead of just grieving uselessly. I'm not walking away from that. Even if it puts you at risk? Especially then. He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and took her hand. Whatever's happening, we face it together. That's what we should have done 3 years ago. Hannah's composure finally shattered. She fell against him, sobbing, and Caleb wrapped his arms around her, holding tight. She weighed nothing, all angles and fragility, and he could feel her heart racing against his chest. I'm so tired, she whispered against his shoulder. I'm so tired of running. Then stop. He pressed his cheek to the top of her head. Stay, rest, let me help. They stood like that until Hannah's sobs quieted to shaky breaths. Finally, she pulled back, wiping her eyes. One night, she said, I'll stay one night. But in the morning, we talk to someone who can actually help. Caleb had already made the decision. I know an investigator, Jared Knox, former FBI. He's good, he's discreet, and he owes me a favor. Caleb, please, Hannah, just let me do this. She looked at him for a long moment, then nodded, too exhausted to argue anymore. Sleep, Caleb said. I'll be right down the hall if you need anything. But as he moved toward the door, Hannah's voice stopped him. Caleb? Does Luke? She swallowed hard. Does he remember me? Caleb's throat tightened. Every day. Hannah nodded, fresh tears spilling over, and Caleb left before his own composure could crack. In his office down the hall, Caleb pulled out his phone and dialed a number he hadn't called in months. Knox. The voice on the other end was gravel and cigarettes. Jared, it's Caleb Mercer. I need your help, and I need it to stay quiet. What kind of help? Caleb looked toward the guest room, thinking of the broken woman trying to sleep in his house, of the son who still sometimes cried for his mother, of the 3 years of anguish that suddenly had context. The kind, he said slowly, that might get dangerous. A pause. Then, I'll be there in the morning. Caleb ended the call and sank into his chair, head in his hands. The rain had stopped, leaving Seattle washed clean and glittering under streetlights. But inside this house, the storm was just beginning. Morning came gray and reluctant, typical Seattle winter pushing back against the idea of sunrise. Caleb had barely slept, his mind churning through Hannah's story, looking for holes, for explanations that made sense. Around 4 a.m., he'd given up and gone to check on her, standing in the doorway of the guest room, watching her sleep fitfully, tangled in blankets, occasionally crying out from nightmares he couldn't fight for her. Now at 7, he stood in his kitchen making coffee with hands that only shook a little. The house felt different, charged, as if Hannah's presence had rewritten the molecular structure of the air itself. Caleb? He turned. Hannah stood in the doorway, drowning in his clothes, hair a mess, eyes red-rimmed but clearer than last night. She looked like someone who'd survived the apocalypse and was still surprised to be breathing. Coffee? He offered. She nodded, moving to the kitchen island. For a few minutes, they existed in domestic silence. Caleb pouring coffee, Hannah adding cream with trembling hands, both of them carefully not addressing the enormity of the situation. Finally, Hannah spoke. I should leave before Luke comes home. Luke's with my mother for the weekend. He won't be back until tomorrow afternoon. Your mother? Hannah's face did something complicated. How is Patricia? Still formidable. Still running her book club like a military operation. Caleb paused. She took your disappearance hard. Blamed me for a while. She should blame me. She blamed everyone. He sipped his coffee. Knox will be here at 9. We'll figure this out, Hannah. You keep saying that like it's possible. Because it is. Before Hannah could argue, the doorbell rang. Caleb frowned. Too early for knocks, and no one else knew to come by. Through the window, he could see a familiar car. Serena. His executive assistant stood on the porch, holding what looked like files and a tablet, dressed in her usual impeccable business casual. Of course she'd show up. Serena Cole had been Caleb's right hand for 4 years, the person who anticipated his needs before he voiced them, who kept his life running smoothly when everything fell apart after Hannah left. It's my assistant, Caleb told Hannah. She probably has something for me to sign. I'll get rid of her. He opened the door before Serena could ring again. Morning! Serena's smile was bright, professional. Sorry to bother you on a weekend, but the Nakamura contracts need signatures before Monday, and I figured... She stopped, eyes moving past Caleb into the house, to where Hannah stood in the kitchen, visible through the open floor plan, wearing Caleb's clothes. Serena's expression flickered, surprise, confusion, and something else Caleb couldn't quite read. I'm sorry, Serena said carefully. I didn't realize you had company. It's not, Caleb started, then stopped. What was he supposed to say? It's complicated. Can the contracts wait until Monday? Of course. But Serena's eyes stayed on Hannah, assessing. Although, if you need anything, I'm fine. Thank you, Serena. She nodded slowly, handed him the tablet. Then I'll just need your signature here, and I'll be out of your hair. Caleb signed quickly, hyper-aware of Hannah frozen in the kitchen, of Serena's curious gaze, of how wrong this all felt. There, he said, handing back the tablet. See you Monday. Monday? Serena smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. Have a good weekend, Caleb. She left, heels clicking down the walkway, and Caleb closed the door with a sense of relief. When he turned back, Hannah was pale. She knows, Hannah whispered. Knows what? She saw someone in my house, that's all. You don't understand. If word gets out that I'm back... Hannah was breathing too fast. They'll know. Whoever's been watching, they'll know I'm here. Hannah, you're being paranoid. Am I? She grabbed his arm. I've stayed alive for 3 years by being paranoid, by trusting my instincts, and my instincts are screaming right now. Caleb wanted to argue, to tell her Serena was harmless, loyal, trustworthy. But then he thought about what Hannah had said last night, how whoever tried to kill her had inside information, had known her schedule, her routes, and Serena had been at the company back then, had access to Caleb's calendar, had known Hannah's habits from years of coordinating their lives. No, that was crazy. Serena had been a rock after Hannah disappeared, had helped Caleb through the worst of it, had taken on extra work without complaint, had been there for everything, every detail, every moment of his grief. What are you thinking? Hannah asked, reading his face. Nothing, probably nothing. But doubt had taken root, small and insidious. Knox will be here soon, we'll lay everything out, and he'll figure out what's real and what's not. Hannah didn't look convinced, but she nodded. Jared Knox arrived at 9 sharp, a compact man in his 50s with gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. He'd worked for the FBI for 20 years before going private, and Caleb had used him once before to investigate corporate espionage. Knox had found the leak in 3 days. Now, sitting in Caleb's office with Hannah curled in a chair like a cornered animal, Knox listened without interruption as she told her story. When she finished, he was quiet for a long moment. You didn't go to the police, he finally said. Not a question. No. Do you remember anything specific about the car? Make, model, license plate? It was dark. It happened fast. Hannah's hands twisted together. I remember headlights, the impact, then running. What about the driver? Did you see them? No. They chased me on foot, but it was dark and I was running. I heard them, but I didn't see. Knox made a note. And the threats before the incident? Do you still have them? Hannah shook her head. I destroyed them. I was trying to convince myself I was imagining things. Another note. Knox looked at Caleb. 3 years is a long time. Evidence degrades, trails go cold. But I can look into the accident reports from that night, see if anything was filed. Check traffic cameras, though most footage only keeps for 90 days. He turned back to Hannah. You said you think someone's watching you again. When did that start? 2 weeks ago, maybe 3. I saw a car that seemed familiar. Then I saw it again. Different locations, but the same car. Make, model? Black sedan, generic, but it had a dent in the front bumper, right side. That's good. That's specific. Knox wrote it down. Anything else? Any other patterns? Hannah thought. There's a man. I've seen him 3, maybe 4 times in the past week. Different places, but always watching. Tall, dark jacket, baseball cap pulled low. Could be coincidence. Or it could be exactly what she thinks it is, Caleb interjected. Can you find out? I can try. Knox closed his notebook. I'll start with the accident reports and work forward. In the meantime, Mrs. Mercer, I'd advise you to stay somewhere safe. Somewhere whoever's looking for you wouldn't think to check. She's staying here, Caleb said. Knox raised an eyebrow. That might not be the best. Here, Caleb repeated firmly. Where I can keep an eye on her. Knox looked between them, then nodded. Your call. I'll be in touch. After Knox left, the house fell into uneasy quiet. Hannah retreated to the guest room, exhausted from reliving her trauma. Caleb tried to work, to focus on emails and contracts, but his mind kept circling back to one question. Who had wanted Hannah dead? And were they still out there? The answer started to take shape 2 days later. Knox called on a gray Tuesday afternoon, his voice tight with something Caleb couldn't quite read. I found the accident report, Knox said without preamble. Single vehicle collision, car registered to Hannah Vale, found 20 feet down an embankment off Highway 18. No body. Police assumed she'd wandered off injured, possibly disoriented. Search went on for 3 days before being called off. Did they investigate it as a possible crime? No evidence of another vehicle, no witnesses. It was ruled accidental. Knox paused. But I pulled traffic camera footage from intersections along her route that night. Caleb's grip tightened on the phone. And? And there was another car, black sedan, following approximately 3 car lengths behind for the last 4 miles before the highway exit. I enhanced the footage, and Caleb, there's damage to the front bumper, right side, fresh damage. The room tilted. You're saying Hannah's telling the truth. I'm saying someone followed her, whether they caused the accident or just didn't stop to help. I can't prove yet, but the pattern matches her story. Can you identify the driver? Working on it. The plates were obscured deliberately, I think, but I'm running the make and model through registrations, cross-referencing with people in your and Hannah's social circle from that time. Another pause. Caleb, I need you to make a list. Everyone who had access to Hannah's schedule. Everyone who knew her routines. That could be a lot of people. Then make a long list. Caleb spent the next hour reconstructing their life from 3 years ago. Friends, family, colleagues, service people. The list grew uncomfortably long. Hannah's yoga instructor, the nanny they'd had briefly, Caleb's business partners. Serena. He stared at her name on the screen. Serena, who'd been there through everything. Who'd held him together when he was falling apart. Who knew his schedule better than he did. Who anticipated his needs. Who'd become indispensable. Who'd been working for him when Hannah disappeared. His phone buzzed. A text from Serena herself. Don't forget the board meeting Thursday. Prepped your notes. Thoughtful, efficient, perfect as always. Caleb deleted the text and went to find Hannah. She was in the garden. Caleb's landscaper had created a small haven out back, and Hannah had discovered it that morning. Now she sat on a bench, face turned toward weak sunlight filtering through clouds, looking more peaceful than Caleb had seen her since she'd returned. Knox called, he said, sitting beside her. Hannah tensed. And? He found footage of a car following you that night. Black sedan, damaged right bumper. Her breath caught. So I'm not crazy. You were never crazy. Caleb took her hand carefully. Hannah, we need to talk about who might have wanted to hurt you. I've thought about it constantly for 3 years. I don't have answers. Did you have enemies? Anyone angry with you? Maybe something from before we met? Hannah shook her head. I was a graphic designer. I made websites and logos. I didn't exactly cultivate enemies. What about my life? My business? Could someone have targeted you to get to me? Maybe. But she didn't sound convinced. They sat in silence, and Caleb's mind kept returning to the same impossible thought. Serena. Could it really be Serena? What possible motive would she have? Professional jealousy? Some twisted obsession? It seemed absurd, the plot of a bad thriller, except Hannah was alive and traumatized, and someone had tried to kill her, and the evidence said that someone was real. I need to ask you something, Caleb said slowly, and I need you to really think about it. Was there anyone in my life, anyone close to me, who might have had a reason to want you gone? Hannah went very still. Why are you asking? Just humor me. She was quiet for a long time. Then, your assistant, Serena. Caleb's heart kicked. What about her? She always looked at me strangely, like I was in her way or something. I mentioned it to you once, and you said I was imagining things. The memory surfaced. An argument, Hannah upset, Caleb dismissive. Serena's just protective of my time. She's not plotting against you. What made you think that? Caleb asked. Little things. The way she'd schedule meetings during family time, how she'd forget to pass along my messages. Once, I walked into your office and she was sitting in your chair, and when she saw me, she looked guilty. Or maybe angry. I couldn't tell. Hannah met his eyes. You thought I was being paranoid then too. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. Just tell me why you're asking now. Caleb hesitated, then decided honesty was the only option. Because Serena had access to your schedule. She knew your routines. She was there when you disappeared, and she's still here now. Hannah's face went white. You think it was her? I think we can't rule it out. Caleb, if it was her, if she's been close to you this whole time. Hannah stood abruptly. You're in danger. Luke's in danger. I need to leave. Now. No. Caleb stood too, catching her hands. We're not running. Not anymore. If it is Serena, we'll prove it. And if it's not, we'll find out who it really is. But we do it together. Hannah searched his face, and Caleb could see her wavering between terror and desperate hope. Together, he repeated. I promise. Finally, she nodded. What neither of them saw was the car parked 3 houses down, its driver watching through tinted windows, phone pressed to ear, speaking in low, urgent tones. Everything was about to get much worse. The next morning, Caleb woke to find Hannah already awake, sitting at the kitchen counter with a cup of coffee that had gone cold hours ago. Dark circles shadowed her eyes, evidence of another sleepless night battling demons he couldn't see. You should try to rest, Caleb said, pouring himself coffee, the routine of it almost absurd given the circumstances. Can't. Hannah's voice was hoarse. Every time I close my eyes, I'm back in that car, hearing the impact, feeling it flip, or I'm running through the woods with footsteps behind me. She looked at him. How do you sleep, knowing someone might be watching? I don't know if anyone's watching. But you suspect. Caleb couldn't deny it. The thought of Serena, efficient, loyal Serena, as some kind of obsessed villain seemed ludicrous in daylight. Yet the seed of doubt had taken root, growing wild tendrils through every memory he had of the past 3 years. His phone buzzed. Knox. I need you both to come to my office, the investigator said without preamble. I found something. 20 minutes later, they were driving through Seattle's gray streets. Hannah pressed against the passenger door, like she might need to jump out at any second. She'd insisted on wearing a baseball cap pulled low, sunglasses despite the overcast sky, a borrowed jacket with the collar turned up. You think anyone's following us? She asked, eyes on the side mirror. Caleb checked his rear view. I don't see anyone. That doesn't mean they're not there. Knox's office was in a nondescript building in Capitol Hill, the kind of place that looked like it housed accountants or insurance adjusters. Inside, the space was spare. Desk, filing cabinets, a wall of monitors showing security feeds. Sit, Knox said, gesturing to chairs. He looked like he'd slept as little as Hannah. I've been going through traffic footage, cross-referencing with the list you gave me, and I found something interesting. He pulled up an image on his computer, grainy traffic camera footage, timestamp showing 3 years and 2 months ago. A black sedan, front bumper clearly damaged, stopped at a red light. "This is from 2 days after Hannah's accident," Knox said. "Same car, same damage pattern. I enhanced the image as much as I could, and..." He clicked to zoom in on the driver's side window. The angle was wrong to see the driver's face clearly, but Caleb could make out one detail, a hand resting on the steering wheel. And on that hand, even in the grainy footage, a distinctive mark was visible. A crescent-shaped scar. "Do you recognize this?" Knox asked. Caleb's mouth went dry. He did recognize it. He'd seen it 1,000 times, usually holding a tablet or coffee cup or pen. Serena's hand. Serena's scar, the one she'd gotten in college from a bicycle accident, a story she'd told him once over late-night Chinese takeout while they worked on a merger. "That's..." He couldn't finish the sentence. Hannah leaned forward, studying the image. "That's your assistant's hand, isn't it? I remember that scar. She told me some story about it at a company party once." Knox's expression was grim. "I ran the car's description through DMV records for everyone on your list. Serena Cole owned a black sedan matching this description. She sold it 3 weeks after Hannah's accident. For scrap." The room tilted. Caleb gripped the arms of his chair, trying to process what he was hearing. "This doesn't prove she was driving," he said, voice shaking. "Someone could have borrowed her car, or..." "Caleb," Knox's tone was gentle but firm. "I also pulled her phone records from that time period. On the night of Hannah's accident, her phone pinged off cell towers along Highway 18, the same route Hannah took, at the same time." Hannah made a small, wounded sound. Caleb reached for her hand instinctively. "Why?" The word came out broken. "Why would Serena want to hurt Hannah?" "That's what we need to find out." Knox pulled out another folder. "I did some digging into Serena's background. She started working for you 4 years ago, correct?" "Yes, she had excellent references, an MBA from a good school. She was perfect for the position." "Did you know she applied to work for you 3 times before you finally hired her?" Caleb frowned. "No, I never saw previous applications. Because they went through your old HR manager, who rejected them. Serena kept trying until there was an opening she could slip through. She was very persistent about working specifically for you." Knox slid a paper across the desk. "I also found this." It was a printout of a social media post from 6 years ago, before Caleb had hired Serena, before he'd even heard her name. The post was from a professional networking site, a comment thread about successful young CEOs. And there, in the comments, was Serena's profile photo and a post that made Caleb's skin crawl. "Caleb Mercer is exactly the kind of visionary leader I'd love to work for. Driven, intelligent, and clearly someone who values loyalty. One day, I'll be part of his success story." "She was obsessed with you," Hannah whispered, "even before she worked for you." "Obsessed is a strong word," Knox said. "But fixated? Definitely. I found dozens of similar posts, articles she'd commented on, professional events she'd attended just because you were speaking. She'd been following your career for years." Caleb felt sick. All those late nights, all those times Serena had stayed to help with projects, had brought him coffee exactly how he liked it, had seemed to read his mind. He'd thought it was professional dedication, exceptional service. He'd never considered it might be something darker. "There's more," Knox continued. "After Hannah disappeared, Serena's social media activity changed. Before, it was all professional. After, she started posting more personal content, pictures from your office, comments about supporting someone through difficult times. She never mentioned you by name, but the context was clear. She was acting like she was part of his life," Hannah said, "like she belonged there." In her mind, maybe she did. Knox pulled out one last document. "This is a bank statement from Serena's account. 3 weeks after Hannah's accident, she made a large cash deposit, $5,000. No clear source." "You think someone paid her?" Caleb asked. "Or she paid someone? Either way, that kind of cash movement right after an attempted murder is suspicious." The word hung in the air. Murder. Not accident, not random violence. Murder. "What do we do?" Hannah's voice was small, scared. "If she knows I'm alive, if she knows I'm back, we need proof." Knox said. Real proof, not circumstantial evidence. Something that would hold up in court. How do we get that? Caleb demanded. We make her think she's safe, that you don't suspect anything. Knox looked at Caleb. You go to work tomorrow, act normal, be friendly with Serena. Meanwhile, I'll work on getting a warrant to search her current vehicle, her home. If she's been watching Hannah recently, there might be evidence. And if she tries something? Hannah gripped Caleb's hand so hard it hurt. That's why you're not going to be alone. Knox pulled out a business card. I'm assigning you protection, former Secret Service. She'll blend in, stay close, and make sure nothing happens. Caleb wanted to argue, wanted to confront Serena immediately, wanted to demand answers and apologies and explanations for the 3 years of hell she'd put them through. But Knox was right. They needed to be smart. Okay, he said finally. Okay, I'll do it. That night, back at the house, Caleb and Hannah sat in tense silence. The idea of seeing Serena tomorrow, of pretending everything was normal, made his stomach churn. I don't want you to go, Hannah said quietly. What if she knows we're onto her? What if she does something? Knox will have people watching. I'll be safe. You don't know that. Caleb turned to face her. 3 years ago, you made a choice to protect Luke and me by disappearing. Now I'm making a choice to protect you by facing this head on. Please, let me do this. Hannah's eyes filled with tears. I can't lose you. I just got you back. You're not going to lose me. He cupped her face gently. I promise. She leaned into his touch, and for a moment they were just Caleb and Hannah again. Not two people navigating trauma and danger, but the couple who'd once been happy, who'd built a life together, who'd loved each other before everything fell apart. I never stopped, Hannah whispered, loving you. Even when I was living under bridges, even when I thought I'd never see you again, I never stopped. Caleb's heart cracked open. I never stopped either. I tried. I dated. I went through the motions, but nothing felt right because it wasn't you. We can't just pick up where we left off. I know, but maybe we can start something new. Hannah kissed him then, soft and tentative, and Caleb kissed her back, careful of her bruises, her fragility, the tender broken parts of her that might never fully heal. When they pulled apart, both had tears on their faces. Tomorrow, Caleb said. We get through tomorrow. Then we figure out the rest. The next morning came too fast. Caleb dressed for work, suit, tie, the armor of professional success, while Hannah watched from the bed. Remember, she said, act normal. Don't let her see anything different. I know. And if anything feels wrong, I'll leave, I promise. He bent to kiss her forehead. Knox's agent will be here in an hour. Her name's Martinez. She'll stay with you. Hannah nodded, but her hands twisted the blanket anxiously. At the office, Caleb's tech company hummed with its usual controlled chaos. Developers clustered around monitors, project managers rushed between meetings, and everything seemed absurdly normal. How could the world just keep spinning when his had been blown apart? Morning, Serena appeared at his elbow, tablet in hand, smile bright. You're 15 minutes early. That's unusual. Caleb forced himself to smile back. Couldn't sleep. Figured I'd get a jump on the day. Well, you've got the board meeting at 10, lunch with the Nakamura team at noon, and the press briefing at 3. She rattled off his schedule with her usual efficiency. I also took the liberty of preparing talking points for the briefing. They're on your desk. Thank you, Serena. You're always so thorough. Just doing my job. She tilted her head, studying him. Are you okay? You seem distracted. Every instinct screamed at him to confront her, to demand answers. Instead, Caleb shrugged. Just tired. Luke's been having nightmares, makes for long nights. Poor thing. Is he okay? He will be. Caleb moved toward his office. I'll look over those talking points. The morning crawled by in agonizing slow motion. Caleb sat through meetings, smiled at appropriate times, made decisions about products and strategies, all while his mind spun with questions. When had Serena's dedication crossed into obsession? Had there been signs he'd missed? And most terrifying, what was she planning now? At 11:30, Serena brought him coffee, setting it on his desk with her usual precision. Vanilla latte, 2 pumps, extra hot, she said. Just how you like it. Caleb stared at the cup, paranoia flooding through him. Would she really try to poison him at work? That seemed crazy. But then, attempting to murder someone also seemed crazy, and she'd apparently done that. Thanks, he said, not touching the coffee. Actually, I'm trying to cut back on caffeine. Doctor's orders. A flicker of something crossed Serena's face. Disappointment? Annoyance? But it was gone so fast Caleb thought he might have imagined it. Of course. I'll bring you water instead. Don't worry about it. I'll grab some later. After she left, Caleb dumped the coffee in his office plant, feeling ridiculous and terrified in equal measure. His phone buzzed. Knocks. Warrant approved. Searching her apartment now. Keep her busy. Caleb's pulse spiked. They were actually doing this. In Serena's home right now, looking through her things, searching for evidence of attempted murder. He forced himself to focus on work, to review documents and respond to emails. At 12:15, Serena appeared again. The Nakamura team is running late. They asked to push lunch to 12:30. That's fine. Also, she hesitated. I wanted to apologize if I made things awkward on Saturday. Showing up unannounced like that. Caleb's blood went cold. What do you mean? I saw you had a guest. A woman. Serena's smile was careful, neutral. I should have called first. Oh, right. That was just... Think, Caleb. An old friend going through a rough patch. I was helping her out. That's very kind of you. Serena's eyes were sharp, assessing. Is she still staying with you? Every alarm in Caleb's head went off. This was dangerous territory, but lying might be worse. For a few more days, until she gets back on her feet. Of course. Serena nodded, but something in her expression had changed, hardened. You've always been generous with people who need help. The way she said it made Caleb's skin crawl. His phone buzzed again. Knocks. Found something. Get out. Now. Caleb stood abruptly. You know what? I'm not feeling well. Cancel the Nakamura lunch. Tell them I'll reschedule. Serena blinked. Are you sure? This meeting's been on the books for weeks. I'm sure. I need to go home. I can drive you... No. The word came out too sharp. Caleb softened it with a forced smile. No, thank you. I'll be fine. Just need to rest. He grabbed his jacket, already moving toward the door. Behind him, he could feel Serena's eyes following, calculating. In the parking garage, Caleb's hands shook as he unlocked his car. He'd barely slid into the driver's seat when his phone rang. What did you find? He demanded. Photos, Knox said grimly. Hundreds of photos of you, going back years, some from before she worked for you, and recent ones, including several of Hannah from the past 2 weeks. Ice flooded Caleb's veins. She's been following Hannah. Not just following, obsessing. There's a whole wall dedicated to tracking her movements, times, locations, patterns. And Caleb, there's a gun, registered legally, but she's got it, and based on the ammunition we found, she knows how to use it. Caleb's vision swam. Is Hannah safe? Martinez is with her, but you need to get home. Now. Caleb was already pulling out of the parking space when he saw it. Serena's car, parked 3 spaces down. And she was sitting in it, watching him. Their eyes met through the windshield. For a long moment, neither moved. Then Serena smiled. Not her professional smile, but something else. Something triumphant and terrible. She knew that he knew. Caleb floored it, tires squealing as he raced toward the exit. In his rearview mirror, he saw Serena's car start up, begin to follow. Knox, Caleb said, phone on speaker. She's following me. Don't go home, not directly. Lead her away from Hannah. Where do I go? Anywhere public. Shopping center, police station, anywhere with cameras and people. Caleb ran a red light, horn blaring from a car he'd nearly hit. Serena followed, maintaining distance but definitely pursuing. His mind raced. The police station was 10 minutes away. But first he needed to warn Hannah. He called home. Martinez answered on the first ring. Where's Hannah? Caleb demanded. Right here, what's wrong? Serena knows, she's following me. Knox found evidence, photos, a gun, everything. You need to lock down the house. Don't let anyone in. Understood. We're secure. Caleb ended the call and focused on driving. Serena's car was closer now, weaving through traffic with surprising aggression. At a stoplight, she pulled up beside him. When Caleb glanced over, she was looking right at him, phone pressed to her ear, lips moving. Who was she calling? The light changed. Caleb accelerated, taking a sudden right turn without signaling. Serena followed. He turned again, trying to lose her in the maze of downtown streets, but she matched every move. Knox, she's not backing off. I've got police en route to intercept. Just keep moving. Caleb spotted a parking garage ahead, one of those massive downtown structures always full of cars and people. He swerved into it, taking the entrance too fast, his expensive sedan scraping against the concrete barrier with a sound that made him wince. Up and up he drove, spiraling through levels of parked cars. Behind him, Serena's headlights stayed constant. On the fourth level, Caleb pulled into a space, killed the engine, and jumped out. Serena parked 20 feet away. For a moment, they just stared at each other across the dim concrete expanse. Then she got out of her car, and Caleb saw she was holding something. The gun. Caleb, her voice echoed in the parking garage. We need to talk. Put the gun down, Serena. I can't do that. She walked closer, gun steady in her hands. Not until you understand. Understand what? That you tried to kill my wife? That you've been stalking her? I saved you. Serena's composure cracked, fury bleeding through. Hannah was wrong for you. She didn't appreciate what she had. She took you for granted, took Luke for granted. I saw it every day. Every time she called to complain about work keeping you late. Every time she made you feel guilty for building something great. That's not your decision to make. Someone had to make it. Serena moved closer, and Caleb backed up against a concrete pillar. You were miserable with her. I could see it. After she left, after she was finally gone, you started to thrive. The company grew, you became focused, and I was there helping you every step of the way. You were there because you forced it. You tried to murder her. I gave her a choice. Serena's voice rose, echoing. I told her to leave. Told her if she really loved you and Luke, she'd disappear and let you move on. She refused. So yes, I made her disappear. And you know what? You were better off. Luke was better off. We were all better off. We? Caleb's voice shook with rage and disbelief. There is no we, Serena. There never was. There could have been. Tears streamed down her face now, gun wavering. If she'd just stayed gone. If she'd just died like she was supposed to. But she came back and now you're protecting her again, choosing her again, and I won't let her destroy you. The only person destroying anything is you. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. Serena heard them too, her expression hardened. I did everything for you, she whispered. Everything. And this is how you repay me? By not letting you kill my wife? Yes, Serena, that's exactly how I repay attempted murder. The gun rose, pointing at his chest. Caleb's heart hammered against his ribs. I could do it right now, Serena said. End this. Then go finish what I started with Hannah. You'd never make it out of this garage. Police are already on their way up. As if on cue, the stairwell door burst open. Police, drop the weapon. Serena's hand shook. For a terrible moment, Caleb thought she might shoot anyway, might take him down with her in one final desperate act. Then the gun clattered to the concrete. Serena sank to her knees, sobbing. I loved you, she said as officers surrounded her, weapons drawn. I loved you, and she didn't deserve you. You don't know the first thing about love, Caleb said quietly. They hauled Serena away in handcuffs, still crying, still trying to explain herself even as they read her rights. Knox appeared, materializing from somewhere, guiding Caleb to sit on the hood of his car. You okay? The investigator asked. She had a gun. She was going to... Caleb couldn't finish the sentence. But she didn't. You're safe. Hannah's safe. Is she? Caleb looked at Knox. Serena talked about finishing what she started. What if there's more? What if... We've got her, Caleb. It's over. But as they left the parking garage, as Caleb drove home with a police escort, one thought kept circling through his mind. Serena had spent 3 years believing she'd won. 3 years living next to him, working with him, maybe falling deeper into her delusion. What had she planned to do once Hannah was permanently gone? The thought made him drive faster, desperate to get home, to see Hannah alive and whole and safe. At the house, Martinez met him at the door. "She's in the living room. She's okay." Hannah looked up when Caleb entered, and the relief on her face nearly broke him. He crossed the room in 3 strides, pulling her into his arms. "It's over," he said into her hair. Serena confessed. "They arrested her. It's over." Hannah clung to him, shaking. "She really tried to kill me. For you. Not for me. For some twisted version of me that existed only in her head." Caleb pulled back to look at her. "I'm so sorry. If I'd seen it sooner, if I'd listened when you said something felt off. You didn't know. How could you? I should have. I should have protected you." "You did." Hannah touched his face gently. "You found me. You brought me home. You figured out the truth. You protected me when it mattered most." They held each other as the day faded outside, as police came and went taking statements, as Knox wrapped up the investigation. Somewhere across the city, Serena sat in a cell, her obsession finally exposed. And here, in this house that had held so much grief, Caleb and Hannah began the impossible process of healing. But the hardest part was still ahead. Luke was coming home tomorrow. That night, neither of them slept. Caleb and Hannah sat in the living room long after Knox and the police had left, long after Martinez had checked every lock and security camera twice before finally agreeing to leave. The house felt too quiet, as if holding its breath, waiting for the next crisis. "What are we going to tell him?" Hannah's voice was barely audible. She'd asked the question 3 times already, each iteration more desperate than the last. Caleb didn't have a better answer than he'd had the first time. The truth. Some version of it. "He's 5 years old, Caleb. How do we explain that his mother didn't abandon him? She was running for her life. That the nice lady who brought him cookies at your office tried to kill me?" Hannah's hands twisted together, a nervous habit she'd developed somewhere in the past 3 years. "How do we make that make sense to a kindergartner?" "We don't." Caleb moved closer, taking her restless hands in his. "We tell him you were sick, that you had to go away to get better, that you wanted to come home but couldn't until now. That's a lie. It's a kindness." He squeezed her fingers gently. "Luke doesn't need the whole truth, not yet. Maybe not ever. He just needs to know his mother loves him and that she's here now." Hannah's eyes filled with tears for what felt like the 100th time that day. "What if he doesn't remember me? What if he looks at me like I'm a stranger?" "Then we start over. We build new memories." Caleb's voice was steady, even though his heart was hammering. "Hannah, I won't lie to you. This is going to be hard. He's going to have questions. He might be angry or confused or scared, but we'll figure it out, together." The word hung between them, weighted with promise and uncertainty. Together. They'd once been good at that, before the world had torn them apart. Hannah leaned against him, exhausted in every possible way. "I used to imagine this moment. When I was sleeping in shelters or under bridges, I'd close my eyes and picture coming home, seeing Luke again. In my head, it was always perfect. He'd run to me, I'd hold him, and everything would be okay." She laughed bitterly. "Reality is so much more complicated." "Reality usually is." Caleb pressed a kiss to the top of her head. "But we're here. We're alive. That's more than we had a week ago." They sat in silence until the sky began to lighten, gray dawn creeping through the windows. Somewhere in the city, Serena Cole sat in a jail cell awaiting arraignment on charges of attempted murder, stalking, and assault with a deadly weapon. The woman who'd organized Caleb's life, who'd known his coffee order and his meeting schedules and apparently his every movement, would spend the next several decades behind bars. The thought should have brought satisfaction. Instead, Caleb just felt hollow. How had he missed it? How had someone so disturbed operated right under his nose for years without him seeing the signs? "Stop," Hannah said softly, reading his thoughts the way she used to. "I can hear you blaming yourself from here. I hired her. I trusted her. I let her get close to Luke. She fooled everyone, Caleb. That's what people like her do. They're good at hiding what they really are." Hannah sat up, turning to face him. "You couldn't have known. I didn't even know. and I was the one she was targeting. You suspected. You said she looked at you strangely, and you thought I was being paranoid, which, given that I actually was being paranoid about a lot of things back then, was a reasonable assumption. She touched his face, forcing him to meet her eyes. We can't change the past. We can only move forward. Caleb caught her hand, holding it against his cheek. 3 years ago, they'd been falling apart, their marriage crumbling under the weight of his work schedule and her increasing anxiety and the general chaos of new parenthood. 3 years ago, he'd thought losing Hannah was the worst thing that could happen. Now having her back, he understood that the worst thing had been not fighting harder to keep her. I'm going to do better this time, he said. I'm going to listen when you're worried. I'm going to be present. I'm going to... Caleb. Hannah's smile was sad and knowing. You can't fix 3 years in one night. We're both different people now. We need to figure out who these new versions of us are before we can figure out who we are together. I know, but I want to try. So do I. They kissed then, gentle and tentative, testing the waters of what might be possible. When they pulled apart, dawn had fully arrived, painting the sky in shades of pearl and rose. He'll be here at 2, Caleb said, checking his phone. His mother had confirmed she'd drop Luke off after lunch as planned. We should probably figure out what we're actually going to say. The next 6 hours passed in a blur of nervous preparation. Hannah showered and changed into borrowed clothes that actually fit, courtesy of a quick shopping trip Caleb made while she tried to eat breakfast without throwing up from anxiety. She looked more like herself now, though still too thin, still carrying shadows under her eyes that wouldn't fade quickly. They practiced different versions of the conversation, role-playing scenarios until the words felt almost natural. Hannah would be introduced as someone who needed help, a friend of Caleb's who was staying with them for a while. They'd gauge Luke's reaction before deciding how much more to share. And if he asks why she looks like the pictures of his mom, Caleb had asked, Hannah had no answer for that. At 1:30, Caleb's phone rang. His mother. We're running a few minutes early, Patricia Mercer said in her brisk, no-nonsense way. Luke insisted on bringing home the volcano he made at my house. It's already leaking vinegar all over my back seat, so I'd like to deliver him sooner rather than later. Mom, wait. See you in 10 minutes, dear. She hung up before Caleb could explain that they needed more time, that Hannah wasn't ready, that he wasn't ready, that nothing about this situation was ready. They're coming now, he told Hannah, who had gone pale. 10 minutes. I can't do this. I should hide. I should... Hey. Caleb took her shoulders gently. Breathe. You can do this. You've survived 3 years on the streets. You survived an attempt on your life. You can survive meeting your son. That's different. That was just survival. This is... Her voice broke. This is everything. The doorbell rang before either of them could say more. Through the window, Caleb saw his mother's Mercedes in the driveway, passenger door already open. And there, climbing out with careful 5-year-old determination, was Luke. Caleb's heart seized. His son had grown even in the week since he'd seen him. Or maybe it just felt that way, knowing Hannah was about to see him for the first time in 3 years, measuring the changes through her eyes. You don't have to do this right now, Caleb said quietly to Hannah. You could wait in another room. We could ease into it. No. Hannah straightened her spine, wiping her eyes. No more waiting. No more hiding. Caleb squeezed her hand once, then went to open the door. Daddy! Luke barreled into his legs, all energy and excitement. Grandma let me make a volcano and it exploded everywhere and it was so cool. Can we make one here? Can we make a bigger one? Maybe, Caleb said, ruffling his son's dark hair. Hair the same shade as Hannah's. We'll see. Patricia appeared behind Luke, carrying a backpack and looking simultaneously amused and exasperated. The volcano is still in the car. I suggest you retrieve it before it eats through my upholstery. Her sharp eyes moved past Caleb into the house, landing on Hannah. For a long moment, his mother simply stared. Her face went through a complicated series of expressions. Shock, disbelief, and something that might have been fury or relief, or both. Patricia, Hannah said quietly, voice shaking. Hannah. Patricia's tone was controlled, decades of finishing school keeping her composure intact. You're alive. I can explain. I'm sure you can. Patricia's attention shifted to Luke, who was already wriggling out of Caleb's grip, eager to explore. Though perhaps not in front of little ears. Luke, oblivious to the tension crackling between the adults, had spotted Hannah standing in the hallway. He stopped, tilting his head in that curious way children do when confronted with something new and interesting. "Who's that?" he asked. Caleb's throat closed up. Beside him, he could feel Hannah trembling. "This is Hannah," Caleb managed. She's a friend who's staying with us for a while." Luke studied Hannah with the unnerving directness of the very young. "You look like my mom." The words punched the air from the room. Hannah made a small, choked sound. Her hand came up to cover her mouth, tears already spilling over. "Your mom?" Patricia's voice was carefully neutral, but Caleb could hear the strain underneath. "Yeah." Luke pointed at a framed photo on the hallway table. One of the few pictures of Hannah that Caleb had kept out. This one showing her holding baby Luke, both of them laughing. "See? She has the same hair and the same smile. Do you know my mom?" This last question was directed at Hannah with heartbreaking hope. Hannah knelt down slowly, bringing herself to Luke's eye level. Caleb could see her fighting for control, could see the war between the desire to grab her son and hold him forever and the knowledge that she couldn't, not yet, not like this. "I knew her," Hannah said, voice barely steady. "A long time ago. We were very good friends. Where is she now?" The question almost broke her. Caleb saw it in the way her shoulders shook, the way her breathing hitched. "She had to go away for a while," Hannah said. "But she thought about you every single day. She missed you so much." "Did she get better?" Luke's face was so earnest, so full of innocent trust. "Daddy said she was sick and had to get better." "Yes." Hannah's smile was watery but genuine. "Yes, she got better." Luke seemed to consider this, his young mind working through some internal logic. Then, with the mercurial nature of children, he moved on. "Do you want to see my volcano? It's in Grandma's car and it's really cool." "I would love to see your volcano," Hannah said. Luke grabbed her hand unselfconsciously, tugging her toward the door, chattering about baking soda and vinegar and how the red food coloring made it look like real lava. Hannah let herself be pulled along, looking back at Caleb with an expression of such raw emotion he had to look away. Patricia stepped closer to her son, voice low. "What in the name of God is going on, Caleb?" "It's complicated. That woman has been gone for 3 years. 3 years of watching you fall apart, of watching that little boy cry for his mother, of wondering if she was dead in a ditch somewhere. And now she's here, in your house, and you're introducing her as a friend." "Mom, don't you dare mom me." Patricia's composure was cracking. "Where has she been? Why did she leave? And why are you letting her anywhere near Luke before getting answers?" "I have answers." Caleb met his mother's furious gaze. "She didn't leave because she wanted to. She left because someone tried to kill her, and she thought disappearing would keep Luke and me safe." Patricia's anger transformed into shock. "What?" "My assistant, Serena. She was obsessed with me. She tried to kill Hannah 3 years ago, and Hannah's been living on the streets ever since, hiding." The words tumbled out, exhausting just to say. "We just found out. Serena confessed yesterday. She's in jail." His mother sank onto the entryway bench, hand pressed to her chest. "Serena Cole? The woman who organized Luke's birthday party? Who brought us Christmas cookies?" "Yes?" "Dear God." Patricia looked toward the driveway where Hannah and Luke were examining the infamous volcano. "That poor girl, living like that, thinking she was protecting you." She stopped, shook her head. "Does Luke know?" "Not yet. We're trying to figure out how to tell him." "You can't." Patricia's voice was firm. "Not the whole truth. He's too young." "I know, but he'll figure out eventually that Hannah is his mother. Kids aren't stupid." "Then let him figure it out on his own timeline." Patricia stood, straightening her jacket with shaking hands. "Let him get to know her as a person first. Build trust. Then, when he's ready, when you're ready, you can tell him more." It was almost exactly what Hannah had said, and the rightness of it settled over Caleb like a weight and a relief simultaneously. Outside, Luke's laughter rang out as the volcano apparently performed successfully, erupting foam and food coloring across Patricia's driveway. Hannah was laughing too, a sound Caleb hadn't heard in 3 years, and it was beautiful and heartbreaking all at once. Over the next few days, a strange new rhythm developed. Hannah moved through the house like a ghost, learning to be solid again, present but uncertain, always waiting for permission to exist in spaces that used to be hers. Luke, with the adaptability of children, accepted her presence without question. To him, she was just Hannah, his dad's friend, someone nice who helped with puzzles and listened to his stories about kindergarten and didn't mind when he wanted to watch the same dinosaur documentary 17 times. But there were moments when Caleb caught Hannah watching Luke with such naked longing it hurt to witness. Moments when Luke would say something or make a particular expression, and Hannah would have to leave the room to cry. Moments when the weight of 3 lost years pressed down so hard that breathing felt impossible. "He doesn't remember me," Hannah said one night after Luke had gone to bed. They were sitting in the kitchen, the same spots they'd occupied that first night, except now it was routine instead of surreal. "Not really. He recognizes something familiar maybe, but I'm not his mother to him. I'm just some woman staying in his house." "Give it time." "What if time isn't enough?" Hannah's voice cracked. "What if I've been gone too long? What if the person he needed me to be doesn't exist anymore?" Caleb didn't have an answer that wouldn't sound like a platitude, so instead he reached across the table and took her hand. She gripped it like a lifeline. The breakthrough came unexpectedly, as these things often do. It was a Tuesday afternoon, and Caleb was working from home, video calls with Tokyo playing in his office, while Hannah sat in the living room reading. Luke burst through the front door, early release from kindergarten, backpack bouncing. "Hannah! Hannah! You have to help me!" He was already pulling papers from his backpack, small face scrunched with worry. "We have to make a family tree for school, and I don't know what to put, and it's due tomorrow, and..." He stopped, staring at the paper in his hands. The assignment was clear. Draw your family tree, include parents and grandparents, bring it to share with the class. Hannah carefully set down her book. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" "I don't have a mom to put on the tree." Luke's voice was small, uncertain. "All the other kids have moms, but mine is gone, and I don't remember what she looks like, really, just from pictures," and tears started to well up. Hannah slid off the couch, kneeling in front of him. "Hey, it's okay. It's okay to be sad about that. But I don't know what to do." Luke wiped his nose with the back of his hand. "My teacher said family trees show the people who love us. But if I can't put my mom because she's not here, does that mean she doesn't love me?" The question shattered something in Hannah's chest. Caleb, who had emerged from his office at the sound of Luke's distress, saw her face crumple, saw her struggle to maintain composure. "Luke," Hannah said, voice thick with tears she was fighting to contain. "Your mother loves you more than anything in the entire world. She never stopped loving you, not for one single second." "But how do you know?" The logic of a 5-year-old demanding proof. "You said you were her friend, but that was a long time ago. Maybe she forgot about me." She didn't forget. Hannah was crying now, unable to stop. "She could never forget you. You were the best thing that ever happened to her. Every day she was gone, she thought about you. She wondered if you were happy, if you were healthy, if you knew how much she loved you." Luke stared at her, something shifting in his young face. "Why are you crying?" "Because..." Hannah's voice broke completely. She looked at Caleb, desperate, asking permission for something she couldn't quite name. Caleb nodded. Hannah took a shaky breath, reaching out to cup Luke's face gently. "Because I'm your mother, Luke. I'm her. I'm the one who's been gone. And I am so, so sorry." The silence stretched impossibly long. Luke's eyes went wide, processing, his young mind working through this enormous revelation. "You're my mom?" His voice was barely a whisper. "Yes." "But Daddy said you were sick, that you had to go away." "I was sick, in a different way than you might think, but I had to leave to keep you safe. I didn't want to. I never wanted to leave you. Luke's face worked through a series of expressions: confusion, hurt, anger, hope. Emotions too big for such a small person to contain. Then, suddenly, he was crying too, and Hannah pulled him into her arms for the first time in 3 years. "I missed you," Luke sobbed into her shoulder. "I missed you so much, and I thought you didn't want me anymore." "Oh, baby, no, no, I always wanted you. Always, you're my whole heart." Hannah held him tight, rocking slightly, years of suppressed maternal instinct flooding through her. "I'm here now. I'm here and I'm not leaving, not ever again." Caleb watched them, his own vision blurring. This moment they'd been so afraid of, this truth they'd tried to manage and control, had happened naturally, messily, perfectly. Luke didn't need careful explanations or age-appropriate language. He just needed to know his mother loved him. After a long time, Luke pulled back, wiping his eyes. "Can you help me with my family tree now?" Hannah laughed, the sound watery but genuine. "Yes. Yes, I can absolutely help you with your family tree." They spent the next hour on the floor, construction paper and markers spread around them, Luke narrating his entire life story to Hannah as if she hadn't been there for the first 2 years of it. Hannah listened to every word, memorizing details, asking questions, piecing together the child her baby had become. Caleb made dinner while they worked, listening to Luke's chatter and Hannah's responses, the sound of it almost aggressively normal. This was what he'd lost 3 years ago. Not just Hannah, but this. The noise and chaos and beauty of a family being a family. At bedtime, Luke asked Hannah to read him a story, then another, then a third, clearly testing the limits of this new reality, seeing if she'd really stay. "One more," he bargained as Hannah closed the third book. "It's already way past your bedtime, buddy," Caleb said from the doorway, "but I want Mom to read another one." Mom. The word hung in the air, precious and powerful. Hannah's eyes filled with fresh tears. "How about I read you one more, but then you have to sleep," Hannah negotiated. "And I promise I'll read to you again tomorrow night, and the night after that, and every night for as long as you want." "Promise?" "I promise." Satisfied, Luke settled back against his pillows while Hannah read a story about a lost bear finding his way home. When she finished, Luke was already half asleep, but he reached out to grab her hand. "I'm glad you got better, Mom," he mumbled. "I'm glad you came home." Hannah pressed a kiss to his forehead, breathing in the little boy's smell of him. Shampoo and outside and something uniquely Luke. "Me too, baby. Me too." In the hallway, after Luke's door was safely closed, Hannah fell apart. Caleb caught her, holding her while she sobbed, years of grief and guilt and relief pouring out of her. "He called me Mom," she gasped between sobs. "He called me Mom, and he meant it, and I don't deserve—" "You deserve everything," Caleb said fiercely. "You deserve him, and he deserves you, and we're going to make this work." "How?" "I don't know how to be a mother anymore. I don't know his routines or his favorite foods or what scares him at night. I missed everything, Caleb, everything." "Then we'll teach you." He pulled back to look at her. "Hannah, you don't have to know everything. You just have to be present. That's all any parent does. Show up and try their best and hope it's enough." She nodded against his chest, exhausted in every possible way. That night marked a shift. Luke, having claimed Hannah as his mother, proceeded to incorporate her into his life with the matter-of-fact efficiency of childhood. He wanted her at breakfast, wanted her opinion on his outfits, wanted her to see his artwork and hear about his day and fix his snacks exactly right. It was overwhelming and beautiful, and occasionally too much for Hannah, who would sometimes need to retreat to the guest room to breathe through panic attacks triggered by the enormity of second chances. But she kept showing up, kept learning, kept trying. 2 weeks after that first night, Dr. Avery Lang returned for a follow-up visit. Hannah's physical health had improved dramatically. Regular meals and safe sleep worked miracles, but the trauma ran deeper than bruises and malnutrition. "You need to talk to someone," Avery said gently. "A therapist who specializes in PTSD. What you went through doesn't just go away because you're home now." "I know," Hannah said quietly. They were sitting in the living room, Luke at school, Caleb at a meeting he couldn't reschedule. "Sometimes I still wake up thinking I'm in a shelter, or I hear a car backfire and I'm back in that moment, feeling my car hit the embankment. It doesn't feel real yet being here. Like I'm going to wake up and it'll all have been a dream. That's normal, given the circumstances, but it's also something you can work through with proper support. Avery handed her a card. This is a colleague of mine. She's excellent with trauma survivors. Hannah took the card, reading the name. Dr. Sarah Chen, clinical psychologist. What if she thinks I'm crazy? What if she thinks I should have handled things differently? She won't. And even if she did, that wouldn't be her job. Her job is to help you process what happened and learn to live with it. Avery's voice was kind but firm. You survived something horrific, Hannah. You did what you thought was right to protect your family. That's not crazy. That's love. But love can't heal trauma. For that, you need professional help. After Avery left, Hannah sat with the card for a long time, turning it over in her hands. The idea of therapy felt like admitting defeat, like acknowledging that she was broken beyond self-repair. But maybe broken wasn't the right word. Maybe she was just wounded, and wounds needed proper treatment to heal. She called and made an appointment. That same week, Caleb received word that Serena's trial date had been set. The prosecutor handling the case, a sharp woman named Rodriguez, came to the house to prepare them for what would come next. She's pleading not guilty by reason of insanity, Rodriguez explained, files spread across the dining table. Her lawyer is arguing that her obsessive fixation on you constituted a mental break, that she wasn't in control of her actions. That's insane, Caleb said. She knew exactly what she was doing. She planned it, executed it, and then spent 3 years hiding it. I agree. But her defense team will argue that the planning itself was evidence of delusion, not premeditation. Rodriguez turned to Hannah, which is why your testimony is crucial. You can speak to the stalking, the threats, the deliberate nature of the attack. Hannah's face had gone pale. I have to testify? In front of her? Yes. I won't lie to you. It won't be pleasant. Her lawyers will question everything. Why you didn't go to the police initially, why you stayed hidden, whether you're really certain it was Serena who attacked you. I am certain. Hannah's voice was quiet but steady. I saw the scar on her hand. I heard her voice when she chased me. I know it was her. Good. Hold on to that certainty. Rodriguez gathered her files. The trial won't be for several months. That gives us time to prepare. In the meantime, I'd advise avoiding any contact with Serena or her legal team. After Rodriguez left, Hannah sat very still, processing. You don't have to do this, Caleb said. We could find another way, maybe. No. Hannah looked at him, and her eyes were clear. I spent 3 years running from her. I'm not running anymore. If testifying puts her away, if it means Luke is safe and you're safe and we can finally move on, then I'll do it. The weeks that followed were an exercise in building a new normal. Hannah started therapy, twice weekly sessions that left her drained but gradually more stable. Luke adjusted to having his mother home, though he sometimes still slipped and called her Hannah instead of Mom, self-correcting with an apologetic smile. Caleb worked from home more often, unwilling to miss any more moments, any more firsts in this second chance they'd been given. But underneath the healing, tension simmered. The trial loomed. Nightmares plagued Hannah, and the questions neither of them quite knew how to answer hung in the air between them. What were they to each other now? Were they rebuilding a marriage or building something entirely new? And how did you move forward when the past was still so present? One night, after Luke was asleep and the house had settled into quiet, Caleb found Hannah on the back porch, wrapped in a blanket, staring at the dark garden. Can't sleep? He asked, sitting beside her. Too much in my head. They sat in companionable silence for a while, the kind they used to share before everything fell apart. Finally, Hannah spoke. I don't know how to do this, Caleb. How to be a mother again. How to be your... She stopped, uncertain what word to use. We never talked about what I am to you now. Am I your ex-wife? Your house guest? You're Hannah, Caleb said simply. You're Luke's mother and you're the woman I still love. Even though I probably shouldn't, even though it's complicated, even though we have so much to figure out. He took her hand. I'm not asking you to decide anything right now. I just want you to know that I'm here. Whatever you need, however long it takes, I'm here. Hannah leaned her head on his shoulder. I love you too. I never stopped, but I'm so scared that I'm too broken now that I can't be what you and Luke need. You're exactly what we need, broken pieces and all. He pressed a kiss to her hair. We'll figure it out together. No pressure, no timeline. Just one day at a time. One day at a time, Hannah echoed, and for the first time in 3 years, she believed it might actually be possible. The days turned into weeks, and weeks into months, each one adding another layer to the fragile foundation they were building. Spring arrived in Seattle with its usual tentative optimism, rain giving way to occasional sunshine, cherry blossoms erupting across the city in clouds of pink and white. Hannah watched the seasons change from inside her new life, still sometimes startled to wake up in a real bed. To drink coffee that wasn't donated or scavenged. To hear her son's voice calling for her from another room. But progress wasn't linear. Some days were good, almost normal. Other days, the weight of everything that had happened crushed down so hard that Hannah could barely get out of bed. Dr. Chen called them grief cycles, explaining that Hannah was mourning the 3 years she'd lost, even as she tried to embrace what she'd found. You're allowed to grieve and be grateful simultaneously, Dr. Chen had said during one particularly difficult session. Those feelings aren't mutually exclusive. It was a Thursday afternoon in early April when the prosecution called. Rodriguez's voice on the phone was brisk, professional, but Hannah could hear the underlying tension. The trial date got moved up, she said without preamble. Judge had a cancellation. We start in 3 weeks. Hannah's stomach dropped. 3 weeks? I thought we had until June. I know, I'm sorry. But this might actually work in our favor. Less time for Serena's team to prepare their insanity defense. Less time for witnesses to forget details. A pause. Are you ready? Hannah looked around the kitchen where she stood. Luke's artwork covered the refrigerator, a chaos of stick figures and dinosaurs. Caleb's coffee mug sat in the sink from that morning. Through the window, she could see the garden where she'd started planting vegetables with Luke, his small hands helping press seeds into soil. I have to be, she said. That night, after Luke was asleep, Hannah and Caleb sat down to talk about what the trial would mean. Caleb had been through the legal process once before, years ago, when his company had been sued by a competitor. He knew the emotional toll, the way lawyers could twist words and intentions until you questioned your own memory. They're going to try to make you look unstable, he warned gently. They'll ask why you didn't go to the police after the attack, why you chose to live on the streets instead of coming home. They'll question every decision you made. I know. Hannah's hands wrapped around her teacup, seeking warmth. Dr. Chen and I have been working on it. She's helping me understand that my decisions made sense given what I knew and felt at the time, that trauma isn't rational. Do you want me in the courtroom? I can be there for every session if you need me. Hannah considered this. Part of her desperately wanted Caleb there, wanted his solid presence as an anchor. But another part worried about him hearing everything, the full extent of how bad things had gotten, the places she'd slept, the things she'd done to survive. I want you there for my testimony, she decided. But maybe not for everything else. Luke needs one of us to maintain normalcy, and if we're both consumed by the trial, he'll feel it, Caleb finished. Okay. I'll be there when you testify, and Rodriguez can call me if anything critical happens on other days. They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of what was coming settling over them like a heavy blanket. Caleb? Hannah's voice was small. What if they don't believe me? What if Serena walks free? Then we appeal. We fight harder. We do whatever it takes. He moved closer, taking her hands. But Hannah, you have evidence. Knox's investigation, the photos from her apartment, the traffic footage, her own confession. The truth is on our side. The truth didn't save me 3 years ago. No, but you did. You saved yourself, and now you're going to make sure she can't hurt anyone else. Hannah wanted to believe him. Some days she did. Other days, doubt crept in like fog, obscuring everything. The following Monday, Patricia Mercer invited herself over for lunch. Caleb's mother had been surprisingly supportive since learning the full story, her initial anger at Hannah transforming into something more complex. Sympathy, mixed with frustration at the years they'd all lost. How are you holding up? Patricia asked, watching Hannah make sandwiches with the careful precision of someone still relearning domestic tasks. I'm okay. Nervous about the trial. Understandable. Patricia accepted her plate with a nod of thanks. I wanted to talk to you about Luke, actually. About what he might hear or understand about all of this. Hannah's knife clattered against the plate. We haven't told him any details, just that I was sick and had to go away. I know. But children pick up more than we think. He's going to hear things at school from other parents who read about the trial in the news. This is Seattle, Hannah. Caleb's a well-known figure. When this goes to trial, it will be news. The thought hadn't even occurred to Hannah. Of course there would be media coverage. Attempted murder, obsessive stalking, a prominent tech CEO. It had all the elements of a sensational story. What do I do? Hannah's voice shook. How do I protect him from that? Patricia's expression softened. You can't, not entirely, but you can control the narrative he gets at home. You and Caleb need to decide what version of events you're comfortable with Luke knowing, and you tell him that version before he hears worse from someone else. He's only 5, which means he's old enough to understand that sometimes bad people do bad things, and that his mother is very brave. Patricia reached across the table, covering Hannah's hand with her own. Don't underestimate him, dear. Children are more resilient than we give them credit for. That evening, Hannah and Caleb sat Luke down for what Dr. Chen had called age-appropriate truth-telling. They kept it simple. Mom had been hurt by someone who was sick in their thinking. Mom had stayed away to keep Luke safe. Now the person who hurt Mom was going to have to talk to a judge about what they did. Luke listened with his characteristic 5-year-old intensity, processing each piece of information carefully. Is the bad person going to jail? He asked. We hope so, Caleb said. Good, because they hurt my mom, and that's not okay. Luke's face scrunched up with the fierce protectiveness only children can manage. Nobody should hurt my mom. Hannah pulled him into a hug, tears threatening. Thank you, baby. Will you have to go away again? The question pierced her. No, never. I'm staying right here with you. Promise? I promise. Satisfied, Luke returned to his coloring book, the conversation apparently processed and filed away. Hannah and Caleb exchanged glances over his head, both thinking the same thing. If only adult trauma was so easy to compartmentalize. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of preparation. Rodriguez came to the house 3 times to go over Hannah's testimony, asking the same questions different ways, preparing her for cross-examination. Knox provided updates on additional evidence he'd gathered, witness statements from people who remembered seeing Serena near Hannah's regular routes 3 years ago, financial records showing suspicious purchases. Hannah's nightmares intensified. She'd wake gasping, convinced she was back in that car, feeling it roll, hearing Serena's footsteps crunching through underbrush. Caleb would hold her until the panic subsided, whispering reassurances, reminding her that she was safe, that Serena was locked up, that this time truth would win. During the day, Hannah tried to maintain normalcy for Luke. She walked him to the bus stop, helped with homework, made snacks, read bedtime stories. But part of her was always elsewhere, already in that courtroom, already facing the woman who'd tried to erase her from existence. 3 days before the trial, Hannah had a breakthrough in therapy. I keep thinking about how angry I am, she told Dr. Chen, not just at Serena, but at myself, for running instead of fighting, for believing I had to disappear to keep my family safe, for missing 3 years of Luke's life. That anger is valid, Dr. Chen said. What do you want to do with it? Hannah had never considered anger as something she could use rather than something she had to suppress. I don't know. May I suggest something? Dr. Chen leaned forward. When you testify, when you tell your story, let yourself be angry. Not at yourself, at the person who put you in that impossible position. Let the jury see that anger. It's powerful evidence that what happened to you was real and devastating. I thought I was supposed to stay calm, measured. You're supposed to be honest, and honest includes angry. Dr. Chen smiled gently. You've spent 3 years trying to make yourself smaller, quieter, invisible. For once, take up space. Be loud about what was done to you. The words resonated through Hannah like a bell. For 3 years, survival had meant silence. Maybe testimony meant the opposite. The night before the trial, Caleb found Hannah standing in Luke's doorway, watching their son sleep. "Second thoughts?" he asked quietly. "No, just memorizing this." She gestured at Luke, at the room full of dinosaur posters and toy bins, and the life they'd rebuilt. "In case tomorrow is hard, in case I need to remember why I'm doing this." Caleb stood beside her, shoulder to shoulder. "You're going to do great." "You don't know that." "I do, because I've watched you survive the impossible. This is just the next step." Hannah leaned against him, drawing strength from his certainty, even when she couldn't find her own. The courthouse was an imposing building in downtown Seattle, all concrete and glass and the weight of justice. Hannah walked up the steps between Caleb and Rodriguez, cameras flashing despite the early hour. Apparently, Patricia had been right about media interest. Inside, the prosecutor led them to a conference room to wait. Through the walls, Hannah could hear the murmur of people gathering, the court preparing for the day's proceedings. "Remember," Rodriguez said, "answer only what's asked. Don't elaborate unless necessary. If you need a break, tell the judge. You're the victim here, Hannah. Don't let them make you forget that." At 9 o'clock sharp, they were called into the courtroom. The space was smaller than Hannah expected, somehow making it feel more intimate and more terrifying simultaneously. Rows of benches held spectators, reporters, curious citizens. Some faces Hannah recognized from Caleb's company. And there, at the defense table, sat Serena. Hannah's breath caught. She hadn't seen Serena since that day in the parking garage, hadn't prepared herself for the visceral reaction of being in the same room. Serena looked different, thinner, paler, wearing a conservative suit that made her look younger than her 34 years. She didn't look like someone capable of attempted murder. She looked like someone's daughter, someone's friend. Their eyes met across the courtroom. Serena's expression was complicated. Regret, anger, something that might have been longing. Hannah looked away first, focusing instead on Rodriguez, on the judge entering, on anything except the woman who'd stolen 3 years of her life. The trial began with opening statements. The prosecution laid out the case methodically. Obsession, stalking, attempted murder, 3 years of deception. The defense countered with their narrative. A woman suffering from erotomania, unable to distinguish reality from delusion, not responsible for actions committed during a mental health crisis. Hannah listened to both sides describe her attempted murder like it was an academic exercise, a puzzle to solve rather than her life, her trauma, her missing years. She gripped Caleb's hand so hard her knuckles went white. The first day was mostly procedural, jury selection, preliminary witnesses, establishing timeline. Knox testified about his investigation, professional and thorough, walking the jury through traffic footage and phone records. A forensic psychologist discussed the photos found in Serena's apartment, the obsessive documentation suggesting premeditation rather than impulsive delusion. Hannah wasn't called to testify until day 3. She spent the intervening time in a strange limbo, attending sessions when her presence was required, waiting in conference rooms when it wasn't. At home, she tried to be normal for Luke, but he could sense something was wrong. "Is the bad person saying sorry?" he asked over dinner the second night. "Not exactly," Caleb said carefully. "Why not? If you do something bad, you're supposed to say sorry." The innocent logic of childhood. Hannah wished the world worked that way. "Sometimes grown-ups make it more complicated than it needs to be," she said. Luke considered this, then shrugged and returned to his pasta, the adult world's complications beyond his concern. On the morning Hannah was scheduled to testify, she woke at 5 a.m. from a nightmare she couldn't quite remember. Caleb was already awake beside her, as if he'd been keeping watch. "Ready?" he asked. "No, but I'm doing it anyway." She dressed carefully in the outfit Rodriguez had helped her choose, professional but not severe, a blue dress that conveyed credibility without seeming calculated. Dr. Chen had taught her breathing exercises for managing anxiety. Hannah used them now, counting inhales and exhales while Caleb drove them to the courthouse. In the conference room, Rodriguez did a final prep. "Remember, Serena's lawyer is going to try to rattle you. Don't let him. You know what happened. Trust your truth." At 10:30, Hannah was called to the stand. The walk to the witness box felt endless, every eye in the courtroom tracking her movement. She placed her hand on the Bible, swore to tell the truth, and sat down. From here, she could see everyone. The jury, young and old, their faces carefully neutral. The judge, a woman in her 60s with kind eyes. Rodriguez, confident and ready. Serena's lawyer, a man named Patterson, who looked like he'd stepped out of a Brooks Brothers catalog. Caleb, sitting in the first row behind the prosecution, his face an anchor of support. And Serena, watching her with an intensity that made Hannah's skin crawl. Rodriguez began with gentle questions, establishing Hannah's identity, her relationship with Caleb, the life she'd had before everything changed. Hannah's voice shook at first, but steadied as she spoke, muscle memory of storytelling taking over. "Can you tell us about the first time you noticed something unusual?" Rodriguez asked. Hannah took a breath, remembering. "About 4 months before the accident, I started feeling watched. Little things at first. My car would be parked in a slightly different position than I'd left it. I'd see the same vehicle in different locations. I found notes." "What kind of notes?" "Threatening ones. They said I didn't deserve my family, that I was ruining Caleb's life, that I should leave before something bad happened." Hannah's hands twisted in her lap. "I thought I was being paranoid, postpartum anxiety maybe. Caleb was so busy with work and I felt guilty for being scared when I had no proof." "Did you tell your husband about these concerns?" "I tried, but I couldn't articulate what was wrong. It sounded crazy when I said it out loud. Someone's moving my car, someone's watching me. Caleb suggested I was stressed, that I should rest more." Across the room, Caleb flinched. Hannah met his eyes briefly, trying to convey that she didn't blame him. How could anyone have predicted the truth? Rodriguez walked her through the night of the attack, every detail. The drive home from her sister's house, the car appearing in her rearview mirror, the first impact from behind, hard enough to send her veering, the second impact, the car rolling, pain and darkness and terror. "What happened after the crash?" Rodriguez asked. "I got out of the car. I was disoriented, bleeding, but I could hear footsteps, someone coming down the embankment toward me." Hannah's voice dropped. "I ran. I didn't think. I just ran into the trees." "Did you see who was chasing you?" "Not their face. It was too dark. But I heard their voice, a woman's voice saying my name, telling me to stop running." "Did you recognize the voice?" Hannah looked at Serena. "Yes. It was Serena Cole. I'd heard her on the phone with Caleb hundreds of times. I knew her voice." "What happened next?" "I fell down another embankment, hit my head. When I woke up, there were police lights above, and I heard officers saying they'd found the car but no body. I stayed hidden in the trees until they left." Hannah's breathing was faster now, the memory visceral. "I was terrified. Someone had just tried to kill me, and I didn't know why, didn't know if coming forward would make me a target again. I thought..." Her voice broke. "I thought if I was dead, if they thought I was dead, maybe they'd leave Caleb and Luke alone." "So you stayed hidden?" "Yes, I lived on the streets, shelters when I could get a bed, under bridges when I couldn't. I took day labor jobs for cash, never staying anywhere too long, never using my real name." Tears streamed down Hannah's face now. "I watched my son from a distance sometimes, saw him at parks, at school pickup, making sure he was okay, making sure the person who wanted me dead hadn't gone after him instead." Rodriguez let the testimony sit, let the jury absorb the full horror of it. Then, "For 3 years you survived this way. Why come forward now?" "Because I got careless, started staying in the same areas too long, and I saw Serena's car again following me. I knew it was starting over." Hannah straightened in her chair. "And I was tired of running, tired of being afraid, tired of missing my son's life. I'd rather die fighting than keep running." "Thank you, Mrs. Mercer. No further questions." Patterson stood, buttoning his suit jacket with deliberate precision. He approached the witness stand with a sympathetic smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Mrs. Mercer, I'm sorry for what you've been through, truly. Living on the streets for 3 years must have been extraordinarily difficult." Hannah waited, knowing a trap when she saw one. "But I have to ask, you say you were certain my client tried to kill you, yet you didn't report this to the police. Why?" "I was afraid." Afraid of what specifically? Afraid Miss Cole would try again, or afraid your story wouldn't hold up under scrutiny? Objection, Rodriguez called. Argumentative. Sustained, the judge said. Rephrase, Mr. Patterson. Let me put it differently. You had no physical evidence of who attacked you, correct? No fingerprints, no DNA, no weapon? I had the car's description, the damage to the bumper. A common vehicle type. Thousands of cars could match that description. Patterson smiled. And the voice you claim to have heard in the dark while injured and disoriented, could you have been mistaken? No. You're certain? Even though you've admitted you were bleeding from a head injury, even though it was dark, even though you were terrified? Hannah's anger flared, the way Dr. Chen had encouraged. I know what I heard. I know who tried to kill me. Or perhaps you constructed this narrative later, after seeing Miss Cole at your husband's house, after needing an explanation for your 3-year absence that didn't make you look like someone who abandoned her family? Objection! Rodriguez was on her feet. Counsel is testifying. Withdrawn. Patterson turned to face the jury. Mrs. Mercer, during those 3 years on the street, did you seek any mental health treatment? No. Why not? Because I had no money, no insurance, no identification. But free clinics exist. Shelters often provide mental health services. You didn't seek help because you didn't think you needed it. Isn't that true? Hannah saw where he was going. I needed to survive. That took all my energy. Or perhaps you were experiencing a mental health crisis that prevented you from thinking clearly. Perhaps the stalking, the attack. Perhaps these were manifestations of postpartum psychosis or paranoid delusions. That's not what happened. But you can't prove it, can you? You have no evidence except your word against my clients. Rodriguez stood again. Your Honor, the prosecution has presented substantial evidence. I'm examining the witness's credibility, Your Honor. Patterson interrupted smoothly. The judge nodded. Proceed, but get to your point, Mr. Patterson. Mrs. Mercer, isn't it true that you and your husband were having marital problems before your disappearance? Hannah's chest tightened. We were struggling, like many couples with a new baby. You argued frequently about his work schedule, correct? Sometimes. And you felt neglected, alone, perhaps even resentful. I don't see what this has to do with... Please, just answer the question. Hannah looked at Caleb, who nodded almost imperceptibly. Tell the truth. Yes, I sometimes felt neglected. Being a new mother is isolating. Isolating enough to make you imagine threats? To create a scenario where you could leave without being blamed? No, that's not... Hannah's voice rose. I didn't imagine anything. Serena tried to kill me. She chased me through the woods. She's been stalking me for 3 years. Just because she looks normal sitting there in her nice suit doesn't mean she isn't dangerous. Patterson smiled, as if Hannah's emotional response proved his point. No further questions. Hannah's hand shook as she stepped down from the witness stand. The cross-examination had lasted less than 20 minutes, but it felt like hours. Rodriguez gave her an encouraging nod as she passed, but Hannah felt hollowed out, exposed. In the hallway, Caleb pulled her into his arms. You did great. He made me sound crazy. He did his job. Now Rodriguez will do hers. Caleb pulled back to look at her. Hannah, the jury heard you. They saw Serena's face while you testified. They're not stupid. But Hannah couldn't shake the fear that Patterson had planted enough doubt that the jury might see her as unstable rather than victimized. The trial continued for 2 more days. The defense called their own experts, psychologists who testified about erotomania and delusion, suggesting Serena had genuinely believed she was protecting Caleb. They painted a picture of a troubled woman who needed treatment, not prison. But then Rodriguez called her rebuttal witness, the prosecutor who'd taken Serena's confession in the parking garage. He testified about Serena's clear, calculated explanation of her actions, her acknowledgement that she knew right from wrong, her statement that Hannah should have stayed dead. The words hung in the courtroom like poison. On the final day, Serena herself took the stand. Hannah forced herself to watch, to listen as the woman who'd tried to kill her explained her actions. I loved Caleb, Serena said, voice trembling. I loved him from the first time I heard him speak at a conference. He was brilliant, visionary, everything I wanted in a partner. I thought if I could just work for him, be close to him, He'd see that we belonged together. And Hannah? Rodriguez asked during cross-examination. She was in the way. She didn't appreciate him. She made him feel guilty for his success. I thought... Serena's voice broke convincingly. I thought I was helping. I thought if she was gone, he could focus on what really mattered, on building his empire. On us. There was no us, Miss Cole. Mr. Mercer never expressed romantic interest in you, correct? Not explicitly, but I could see it. The way he relied on me, trusted me. We had a connection. A connection you imagined. It was real. Serena's composure cracked. It was real, and Hannah ruined it by coming back, by making him think he still wanted her when he'd been so much better without her. The outburst was exactly what Rodriguez had been pushing for. The mask slipping, the real Serena showing through. After closing arguments, the jury deliberated for 6 hours. Hannah spent that time in the conference room, unable to eat, unable to think about anything except what verdict would come. When the call finally came that the jury had reached a decision, Hannah's heart nearly stopped. They filed back into the courtroom. The 4 women stood. On the count of attempted murder in the first degree, how do you find? Guilty. Hannah's knees went weak. Caleb caught her arm, steadying her. On the count of stalking? Guilty. On the count of assault with a deadly weapon? Guilty. All counts. Guilty on all counts. Serena's face crumpled. Her lawyer put a hand on her shoulder, but she shook it off, turning to look directly at Hannah. This isn't over, she mouthed. But it was. The judge set a sentencing date for 3 weeks later, and Serena was remanded to custody pending sentencing. As they led her away in handcuffs, Hannah finally let herself breathe. Outside the courthouse, reporters shouted questions. Caleb shielded Hannah, getting her to the car while Rodriguez handled the press. Once they were safely inside, doors locked, Hannah started to cry. It's over, she sobbed. It's really over. It's over, Caleb agreed, pulling her close. You're safe. We're all safe. They sat in the parking garage for a long time, holding each other, letting the reality of the verdict sink in. 3 years of running, 3 years of fear, and now, finally, the possibility of peace. At home, Luke met them at the door, having been dropped off by Patricia an hour earlier. Did the bad person have to say sorry? He asked immediately. Hannah knelt down to his level. Yes, baby. The judge said she has to go to jail for a very long time because she hurt people. Good. Luke hugged her fiercely. I don't want anyone to hurt you ever again. They won't, Hannah promised, hoping desperately that she could keep that promise. I'm safe now. We all are. That night, after Luke was asleep, Hannah and Caleb sat together in the living room, wine glasses in hand, simply existing in the quiet aftermath of chaos. What happens now? Hannah asked. Now? Caleb considered. Now we heal, we build, we figure out what our family looks like going forward. I don't even know where to start. Neither do I, but we'll figure it out. He took her hand, thumb brushing over her knuckles. One day at a time. Together. Hannah leaned her head on his shoulder, exhausted but somehow lighter than she'd felt in years. The trial was over. The threat was contained. All that remained was the hard, beautiful work of learning to live again. 3 weeks after the verdict, Serena was sentenced to 25 years in prison with no possibility of parole for 15. Hannah attended the sentencing, needing to see it through to the end, needing to watch the door close on that chapter of her life. Serena's final words to the court were a rambling mixture of apology and justification, claiming she'd only wanted what was best for Caleb, that her love had made her sick. Love doesn't destroy people, the judge had said, her voice cutting through Serena's tears. What you felt was obsession. What you did was attempted murder. And you will spend the next quarter century understanding the difference. Walking out of that courtroom for the last time, Hannah felt something shift inside her. Not closure exactly. Dr. Chen had warned her that trauma didn't wrap up neatly, but a sense of permission to move forward. The past would always be there, but it no longer had teeth. The real work began after that. Hannah's therapy sessions intensified as she processed not just the trauma of the attack, but the complicated grief of everything she'd lost. Dr. Chen introduced her to EMDR therapy, using rapid eye movements to help reprocess traumatic memories. It was exhausting, often leaving Hannah wrung out and shaking, but slowly, the nightmares began to fade. Slowly, she started to believe that she deserved to take up space in the world again. At home, the adjustment continued in fits and starts. Some days felt almost normal. Breakfast together, Luke's homework spread across the kitchen table, the comfortable rhythm of family life. Other days, Hannah would freeze at the grocery store, overwhelmed by choices after years of eating whatever she could find. Or she'd wake up disoriented, convinced she was back in a shelter, and it would take Caleb's steady voice to bring her back to the present. Luke, with the remarkable adaptability of children, had integrated Hannah back into his life with increasing ease. He still had questions. Why had she been gone so long? Did she still love him when she was away? Would she leave again? But each question gave Hannah an opportunity to reassure him, to prove through consistency that she was staying. "Mom, can you come to my school on Friday?" Luke asked one evening in late May, a permission slip clutched in his hand. "We're doing a thing about families and everyone's bringing someone." Hannah's throat tightened. "A thing about families?" "Yeah, we have to talk about our family and what makes it special." Luke's face was eager, innocent. "I want to tell everyone about how you came home. Is that okay?" Hannah looked at Caleb, who nodded encouragingly. "That's more than okay, baby," she said. "I'd be honored." But later, after Luke was in bed, Hannah's anxiety spiraled. What if the other parents know about the trial? What if they judge him because of what happened to me? "Then they're idiots," Caleb said firmly. "Hannah, you're not defined by what Serena did to you. Neither is Luke. He wants to share his family because he's proud of it, of us, of you. I don't know if I can stand in front of a room of kindergartners and their parents and, 'You testified in court against your would-be murderer. You can handle a kindergarten family day.'" He was right, of course. On Friday, Hannah stood nervously at the front of Luke's classroom, her son beaming beside her, and told a simplified version of their story. She'd been sick, she'd had to go away, and now she was better and home. Luke added that his mom was brave and strong and made really good pancakes. One mother came up afterward, a woman Hannah vaguely recognized from school pickup. "I just wanted to say," the woman began, and Hannah braced for judgment, "that I think what you survived is incredible. My sister went through something similar with a stalker, and the strength it takes to rebuild after that." She shook her head. "You're an inspiration." Hannah had no idea how to respond. She'd never thought of herself as inspiring, just surviving. But maybe that was enough. As spring turned to summer, Hannah found herself establishing new routines. She started volunteering at a women's shelter twice a week, helping other survivors navigate the systems she'd once been lost in. The work was hard, emotionally draining, but it gave her a sense of purpose beyond her own recovery. She also started cooking again. During her years on the street, food had been purely functional, about calories and survival. Now she slowly remembered the joy of creating meals, of watching Caleb's and Luke's faces as they tried new recipes. She wasn't the same cook she'd been 3 years ago, that Hannah had made elaborate dishes to compensate for feeling inadequate in other areas. This Hannah made simple, nourishing food and didn't apologize when something didn't turn out right. But the hardest conversations were still ahead, the ones about what she and Caleb were to each other now. They'd fallen into a comfortable domesticity, co-parenting with increasing synchronicity, sharing the house with easy familiarity. But they hadn't talked about the future, about whether they were rebuilding a marriage or building a friendship or something else entirely. They hadn't kissed since that first night, hadn't discussed sleeping in the same room, existed in a careful limbo that felt both safe and unsustainable. It was Dr. Chen who finally pushed Hannah to address it. "You can't heal in stasis," the therapist said during a session in early June. "At some point, you need to decide what you want your life to look like. Not what you think you deserve, not what's easiest, but what you actually want." That night, Hannah asked Caleb if they could talk after Luke went to bed. She saw the flicker of concern in his eyes, but also something else. Hope, maybe, or readiness. They sat on the back porch, the same spot where they'd had so many conversations over the past months. The garden Hannah had planted with Luke was thriving, green shoots reaching toward the summer sky. "I've been thinking," Hannah started, hands wrapped around a mug of tea she wasn't drinking. About us. About what we're doing here. Caleb's posture tensed slightly. Okay. 3 years ago, our marriage was falling apart. I know we don't talk about it much, but it's true. We were two people who loved each other but didn't know how to be together anymore. She forced herself to look at him. And I wonder sometimes if we're just repeating patterns. If we're together now because it's easier than figuring out how to co-parent separately. Is that what you think this is? Caleb's voice was carefully controlled. I don't know what this is. That's the problem. Hannah set down her mug. I know I love you. I never stopped loving you. But I'm not the same person I was 3 years ago, Caleb. I can't just slot back into the role of your wife like nothing happened. I'm not asking you to. Then what are you asking? Caleb was quiet for a long moment, choosing his words carefully. I'm asking for the chance to know who you are now, to see if the people we've become can build something together, not a restoration of what we had, but something new. What if we try and it doesn't work? What if we hurt Luke by attempting this and failing? What if we don't try and spend the rest of our lives wondering what we could have had? Caleb shifted closer. Hannah, I'm not going to pretend this is simple or that I have all the answers, but I know that when I look at my future, you're in it, not as an obligation or convenience, but as the person I choose, the person I want to choose every day. Hannah's eyes filled with tears. I'm scared. I'm so scared of failing you again. You didn't fail me the first time. We failed each other. We were young and stupid, and we didn't know how to communicate. His hand found hers. But we're not those people anymore. We've both survived things that should have broken us. If we can survive that, we can survive the hard work of building a real partnership. I don't even know where to start. How about we start with honesty? Real honesty, not the kind where we protect each other's feelings. Caleb's thumb traced circles on her palm. I'll go first. I'm terrified that you're going to wake up one day and realize you stayed because you felt obligated, not because you wanted to. I'm terrified that I won't be enough, that my work will consume me again, and you'll feel neglected and history will repeat itself. Hannah squeezed his hand. I'm terrified that I'm too broken to be a good partner, that my trauma will always be there, creating distance between us, that you'll resent having to constantly reassure me that I'm safe when I should just know it by now. Those are good fears to name. Doesn't make them less scary. No, Caleb agreed, but it makes them manageable. We know what we're afraid of. We can work with that. They sat in silence, hands intertwined, the weight of the conversation settling around them. I want to try, Hannah said finally. I want to try building something new with you, but I need us to do it right this time. I need couples therapy. I need you to really hear me when I'm struggling, not dismiss it as stress or anxiety. I need those things too, Caleb interrupted gently. I need you to tell me when I'm working too much, when I'm not present. I need you to trust that I'm strong enough to handle your hard days, that you don't have to protect me from your pain. Deal. Deal. Caleb leaned in slowly, giving Hannah time to pull away, and kissed her. It was different from their kisses 3 years ago, less desperate, more intentional. A promise instead of a passion. When they pulled apart, both were crying. I love you, Caleb said. The you that exists right now, trauma and strength and everything in between. I love you too, and I'm choosing to trust that this time can be different. It will be, because we'll make it different. They started couples therapy the following week with a counselor Dr. Chen recommended. The sessions were hard, often leaving them both emotionally raw, but they also created space for conversations they'd never had before. They talked about expectations and boundaries, about what partnership meant to each of them, about how to balance Caleb's demanding career with Hannah's need for consistent presence. They also talked about intimacy, not just physical, but emotional. About the ways Hannah still sometimes felt like a guest in the house that should be her home. About Caleb's tendency to try to fix problems instead of just listening. About building trust after it had been shattered. I think we should plan a date, their therapist suggested after a particularly productive session. Something that's just for the two of you, not about being parents or survivors or anything except two people who care about each other. The idea felt foreign and exciting. Hannah couldn't remember the last time she'd been on a date, probably before Luke was born. But the following Saturday, Patricia volunteered to watch Luke overnight, and Caleb made reservations at a small restaurant overlooking the Sound. Hannah spent an hour getting ready, trying on 3 different dresses before settling on something simple. When she came downstairs, Caleb was waiting in a suit, holding flowers. "You look beautiful," he said, and the sincerity in his voice made Hannah's cheeks flush. "You clean up pretty well yourself." Dinner was lovely. Good food, easy conversation, the kind of comfortable companionship that comes from really knowing someone. But the real magic happened afterward, when they walked along the waterfront as the sun set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. "I've missed this," Hannah said, her hand in Caleb's. "Just being us. We can have more of it. We just have to make it a priority." "Even with your schedule?" "Especially with my schedule." Caleb stopped walking, turning to face her. "Hannah, I've been thinking about making some changes at work. Promoting someone to handle more of the day-to-day operations so I can step back a bit. Focus more on strategy and vision, less on being in the office 80 hours a week." "You do that?" "I already am. Started the process last month, actually. I hired a COO. He smiled. "Learned my lesson about indispensable assistants." Hannah laughed, the sound surprising her. She was laughing about Serena, about that nightmare, and somehow it didn't feel wrong. "I think," she said slowly, "I'm starting to believe this might actually work." "Good, because I've been believing it all along." They kissed as the sun finished setting, and for the first time in 3 years, Hannah felt genuinely hopeful about the future. The summer passed in a series of small victories. Luke started calling Hannah Mom consistently, without the occasional slip back to Hannah. The nightmares that had plagued her began to space out, from nightly to weekly to occasional. Hannah gained weight, filling out to a healthy size, color returning to her cheeks. She started wearing her wedding ring again, the simple band Caleb had given her 7 years ago, now fitting loosely on her thinner finger. In August, Hannah suggested they take a family vacation, something they'd never done when Luke was a baby, always too busy or too stressed or too broke in those early startup years. They rented a cabin on the Oregon coast, just the 3 of them, and spent a week building sandcastles and flying kites and being together without the weight of Seattle and all its memories pressing down. One evening, after Luke had gone to bed, Hannah and Caleb sat on the cabin's porch watching the ocean. "I've been thinking about something," Hannah said. "Something big." Caleb waited, patient. "I want to go back to school, get my degree in social work maybe, make official what I've been doing at the shelter." She glanced at him. "It would mean 2 years of classes, probably some internships, less time at home, less availability for Luke." "Okay." Hannah blinked. "Okay? Just like that?" "You're asking permission to build a career doing something you're passionate about. Why would I object to that?" "Because it's not practical. Because we don't need the money. Because you think you should prioritize everyone else's needs over your own?" Caleb took her hand. "Hannah, you spent 3 years in pure survival mode. Then you spent months recovering. You're allowed to want something for yourself. You're allowed to build a future that excites you." She leaned against him, grateful beyond words. "Thank you. Thank me by kicking ass in grad school." When they returned to Seattle, Hannah started researching programs. She applied to the University of Washington School of Social Work and was accepted for the spring semester. The idea of being a student again at 32 felt both terrifying and exhilarating. September brought another milestone. Hannah moved out of the guest room. It happened gradually, naturally. She'd started sleeping in Caleb's room occasionally, usually after particularly good days when the future felt possible instead of threatening. Then occasionally became frequently, and frequently became most nights, until one morning Hannah realized she'd been sleeping in Caleb's bed for 2 weeks straight, and the guest room had become storage for Luke's outgrown toys. "Should we make it official?" Caleb asked, noticing her standing in the doorway of what had been her temporary sanctuary. "Make what official?" "That this is our room, our life, our family, not just people cohabitating for Luke's sake." Hannah thought about it, really thought about it. Did she feel married to Caleb? Did she feel like his wife? "I feel like your partner," she said finally. "Not because a piece of paper says so, but because we choose it every day." That works for me. They moved Hannah's belongings that afternoon, blending her things with Caleb's, creating a shared space that belonged to both of them. It felt significant, like planting a flag in the future. October brought an unexpected challenge. Luke came home from school upset, having been teased by another child about his mom being homeless. Marcus said you lived on the street like a bum, Luke reported, tears in his eyes. He said his dad said you were probably crazy. Hannah's heart sank. She'd known this would happen eventually, that the trial, the media coverage, the whispers would reach Luke's world. But knowing and experiencing were different things. What did you say to Marcus? She asked gently.